Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland, 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 Dixieland.
Thank you for tuning in to Dixieland of the Proletariat, where we talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Make sure to like us on social media at Dixieland of the Proletariat, or find our links at linktree/.prol, that's DOT-prol, where if you want to give your wages to a bunch of rednecks, you'll find the link to our Patreon. We got a lot of cool stuff to give you, including CDs, stickers, a cookbook, Discord server, and exclusive episodes. We also have a Spotify playlist with some great artists y'all should check out, as well as our merch store. This special edition of the podcast is brought to you by John Wayne's Teeth, General Custer's Shriveled Scalp Lock, Lewis and Clark's Mercury-filled shit stretching across the continent, and the fund for the prosecution of John Smith. Shout out to our new Patreon subscribers, no one. Our intro music is by Psychotic Refuge, and our producer is Mr. Speaker. Our monthly Patreon surplus goes to groups that are run by and or help marginalized people directly. I'm Kaeza with...
I'm an Indian outlaw.
Oh, God.
My friends call me Bear Claw.
I assure you they don't.
I'm Mark.
And our guest this evening is...
Rick from Decolonized Buffalo.
Welcome. Yay!
Yay! Kyle, that was great. You did great.
You didn't even let it get a clean run.
That was a clean run. That was great. Oh,
I want to know about the the cookbook. You guys have a cookbook?
Oh yeah. So Tyler, who's our other co-host, he's a chef.
Oh,
and
okay.
he comes. He's busy. He's got a big family, so and everything else going on. But he comes on our Patreon episodes now because he's just really busy.
Okay.
But we have a PDF with we have breakfast, dinner, dessert, like everything. I'll send it to you. But
okay. Does it say Dixieland of the Proletariat Cookbook?
It's cooking with Tyler. It's cooking with Tyler.
Oh, okay. I was like, damn.
No, I know. The cover is him drinking on the boat. He's like shirtless, just getting drunk on his boat. But no, all the recipes are like, what was it? Like yeehaw grits or something. It's like all Southern.
I remember looking at this like 2 years ago. Okay. So.
Yeah.
I want to try that. Okay.
No, apparently this stuff's really good. And Tyler's a really good chef. I'm not gonna lie. He's at one of the bigger restaurants here in town, very exclusive restaurants. So he's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
I got you. I'll send you it after the episode for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nelson has decided to wash his hands of this episode. We're taking over. We've kicked the colonizer out. It is the all Indigenous hour this time. We are talking about Indigenous representation in popular media, which is why we have Rick from Decolonized Buffalo on here. It's going to be amazing. So first thing that we want to start off with, because we started this before we started recording, is talking about Yellowstone. Nelson, in his infinite wisdom, decided to make and post a Yellowstone meme on our Facebook page. And it's just, I can't even say disappointed. This is completely what I expected of y'all. And I'm still angry.
What about that guy that was like, tell me you haven't seen the show without telling me you haven't seen the show?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was supposed to give this.
I'm pulling up that comment because it's such a fucking like shitty comment. Hold on. It was the what the fuck did he say? Oh, he pulled the whole they talk about all the native stuff. But it was like, dude, shut the fuck up.
With white people in the forefront again. Like,
yeah.
We're supposed to be happy about scraps? Like,
yeah, obviously, duh.
Hey, I started watching that show. I think the first episode was an hour and a half. I got through a whole hour. I was like, damn, how long is this damn show, man? And I was like, no, I'm not watching it in an hour and a half. I'm sorry. And I couldn't even finish the first episode. It was just like, it was like, I don't know. Well, I heard from other Native people that Yellowstone was boring, but I heard from other people that it was so good. It's the best show ever. So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it, but it's fucking boring. Straight up. The story is just like centers this like rich landowner, and I don't even know the whole story because I didn't finish the first episode, but I can see the conflict rising between the tribe, the community, and the rich landowner. I was just like,
Mm.
yeah.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Steven said, "So you haven't watched it? I see." They didn't. Not they. Is like you haven't watched it. I see the cover all the Native American issues. Or does that not matter to you? I was like, shut the fuck up.
Well, your thoughts on that?
All right, Nelson. Here we go. Here's your platform.
I was watching you right now. Your meme's funny.
Get fucked, Steven. Would have cut off your hands like on my shirt.
Yeah, Nelson is wearing his anti-Italian discrimination shirt.
It says cut ties decolonized, and it's Columbus.
That's a cool shirt, though.
Yeah, I love it. It's from.
He's got his hands cut off in it. It's great.
No, it's great. Punks. It's shout out to Punks with a Camera on Instagram. They got a great store, and this is my second favorite. The only reason this is my second favorite shirt. Oh, it says cut ties decolonized, and it's Columbus with his hands chopped off, looking there like standing there like a fucking idiot. But these are my second favorite shirt because the shirt I have that I love, and I have to love it because I'm Italian. It's politicians don't die like they used to, and it's Mussolini strung upside down with his wife. What they do at the gas station in fucking Florence. Hell yeah. Whoa! All right, enough
for
of that.
For some reason, that's not something that was on the bus tour I took of Florence. Here's the gas station where he was strung up.
Mamma mia!
That's the one I'm taking next time.
So I have a question. So has anybody watched Yellowstone? Like completed the first season?
No,
Definitely not.
What the vibe that I got from it was Kevin Costner and his family are really rich. They own a big
Kevin fucking Costner again. The bane of my fucking life.
Him and his family own some big ranch in Montana, and then like it's other ranch. They're like fighting each other, and then it's like I said, it's like a show for white people to watch to feel oppressed. And the memes that I've seen about it are hilarious. This one meme I saw was this dude is literally holding an AR-15, and he's like, "This is how I watch Yellowstone." And I'm just like,
oh my God.
Yeah, just all the manifest destiny fantasies.
Like, I'll start off this episode with my thing, and that's probably going to make this really frustrating to a lot of people listening, is that a lot of times, like majority of the time, I would say like 80% plus of the times that somebody says, oh, there's Native people in such and such, or it's a story about Native people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't watch it because I know I'm going to be disappointed. I know I'm going to spend all my time like watching this and going, well, you didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. And it's clearly these lines are written by white people and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't watch it. So even though like Yellowstone is like, oh, well, they've got apparently some indigenous people in it, some native issues going on in it. I don't want to watch another show about white people where there's Indians in the background. Like, Indians have been in the background for the entire history of media, of popular media, especially in the United States. And like, you're not going to make me excited about another one where we're in the background. So I will rip the shit out of it because I feel like it's my right to rip the shit out of it, and I'm not going to watch it, and y'all can die mad about it. So
I also want to say that I watched enough where there was a scene where they introduced Gil Birmingham's character, and he was a new elected chief, and he was in the casino meeting this, like, I don't know, politician, right, in Montana. And it was just like the ending of that scene, it was like, or in the middle somewhere, it was like, he was like, oh, your people don't want to give land back, so we're going to use capitalism to get it back. We're going to buy back the land. And they made him seem like this evil, like, I'm using capitalism to be evil. I was just like, what is this? You know what? What is this nonsense?
For one thing, that's an old ass joke. I don't know if anybody remembers that joke about like it was a joke that's been on since the beginning of like the Facebook days of like an Indian goes into Home Depot and somebody sees him wheeling out a whole bunch of bags of dirt, and they say, what are you going to do with this? And he says, I'm buying my land back one bag at a time. And like, that is a fire joke. But also, that's an old joke. All the Indians already know this.
Also, it always seems like with these shows, I want to get y'all's opinion on this. It always seems like if there is an indigenous character, they always have to be like a corrupt casino like business person, like House of Cards, corrupt casino business
I
person.
think
Seems
Gil
like
Birmingham was
Yellowstone.
in that too.
Oh, was
Wasn't
he
it?
the dude that owned the casino
I
that
think so.
tried to take down Frank
Let me look
Underwood
it
and all
up.
that?
Yeah.
But it's like it's always like corrupt business casino owner. It was in that in The Sopranos. It was like that in like House of Cards.
Yeah,
It
he
was
was
like
him.
that. Yeah. It's always this trope of like the corrupt capitalist it's always casinos too. They obviously that's the only business indigenous people are allowed to do is casinos. And it's just even to me as a white man looking at that, it just seems like a very tired, stupid, cheap trope.
I think it's also like plays into the narrative that we can indigenize capitalism, and that's liberation for us. When that's not even liberation at all. It's just liberalism or like repackaged nonsense. I think that's to get into that. What does decolonization mean? Blah blah blah. And capitalism is not part of that process. So yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that, Mark?
Well, yeah, it's like almost like putting it in terms that they understand, I think. Like
They being the audience.
Well,
Nelson pointing at himself is that
yeah, like
I'll tell you what,
the more
them
like,
ranchers,
yeah,
they can fight
the
them engines.
non-indigenous audience, or mostly white people who are colonizers, came from colonizers. Because if the villain has like, I don't know, let's see. I'm trying to think of a good character. It's like where they are doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. You can't really villain, like there's still going to be a little bit of empathy for it. But if you're like, look, they're just like us, they're just as greedy and corrupt as we are. Like it makes it easier to be like, oh yeah, of course that's the bad guy. Of course we're not going to really care about their struggle or whatever is motivating them. It cheapens the characters' like actions for me, I think.
I
And that might
think
be one
like,
of the intentions for that, besides just tropes, just as a narrative standpoint.
The point that I was going to bring up is that trope in particular, when you have Native people in colonizer / Western media, whatever you want to quantify it as, is that when they're using that as like this villain trope, you also have to look at, okay, so what is the background of this? That means that it's a trope because a lot of Native nations have only been able to take part in things like gambling, like a lot of the things, because they were forced into capitalism to begin with, forced into like this colonized way to have capitalism, therefore you can't survive without having to take part in it. And the way that was like held out to them is, this is how you're going to be successful, is that we are giving you like your loophole, quote unquote loophole, by having casinos. So you're making the problem and then punishing people for taking part in it. And then you also have, like, I've explained this to you before, Nelson, that when you overlay like colonial ideas of governance onto indigenous peoples, it's not a fit. It's this really weird, like taking one jigsaw puzzle, putting on top of another jigsaw puzzle and expecting it to all fit the same way. Is that you've put people into these forms of governances and these forms of survival, and expecting that like all of a sudden like this is going to be great, that it's going to be a one-to-one match between all these things, where indigenous forms of governance did not look like colonizer governments, did not look like commerce, and for lack of a better word, indigenous commerce did not look like colonizer commerce. So when you're kind of stacking it on top of each other, and then you see like, oh, well, there's all these holes, there's all these problems in it. You're making the problem and then punishing them for it by giving them this trope of like, well, they're all corrupt. It kind of folds into like all Indians are drunks or are getting high all the time or something like that. Like you've made the problems and now you're making sure that that is the only way that they're going to be portrayed.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So I guess we've just
I think
on Yellowstone.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
I was gonna say
sorry.
that
I guess
too.
I'm
I think
sorry.
she just leave Yellowstone alone. It's already beat up.
Well, like, okay, so if we want to start with, do we want to start with like more historical versions of media portrayals, or do we want to start with like the new stuff, this kind of golden age of Indigenous content that's coming out now? Anybody got it?
You can go to older stuff first.
All right.
That makes sense.
So, I mean, really, we can start as far back as like the popularization of like dime novels all the way back in the late 1800s, coming up into the birth of film in the early 1900s, moving into popular film in the 1920s and so on. But in all of these things, when you start creating the image of the Indian in popular American media, definitely, and how that's spread across the world because Americans are the one making the medias and then like shoving it into other areas of the world, is that you really come across a few tropes. You have like the noble dying race, the noble savage. You have a lot of really, really negative portrayals of Indigenous women, if they're in there at all. And it's this it's become a very common shorthand that everybody recognizes quickly, even if they don't recognize that it's come out of that. This has come out of like portrayals from the 1890s and dime store novels of, you know, the noble cowboy or the rancher, somebody who's out west, who's encountering the last vestiges of the Indians in out west. For one thing, that it's only talking about Midwest and Western, not even like California natives. The California natives had a whole other thing going on, but it's only talking about a specific section of Native America. It's only talking about specific forms of viewing that. And it's giving you this very relatable, like shorthand that you're going to take all the way up to today, which is like, it's creating such a problem in media now because you're trying to see through these lenses that are already colored by these old tropes. So the first ones that came to mind is you've got, you know, during your golden age or golden age silver screen era, you've got things like Tonto, who is always a sidekick. You've got who, for one, Jay Silver Heels was actually Mohawk, so the one real Indian on TV. At that point, this is the 50s and 60s. He was the only one. But I want to know if specifically Mark and Rick, if you have seen some of these like older tropes that you've had to deal with now, like especially how has it affected your life now, like old tropes, how possibly how like colonizer descendant colonizer settlers have dealt with you now.
I'll let Mark go first.
Well, I was trying to think of a good, like, besides just the weird, once people, because I am white passing, but my grandmother is not quite as much. She's a little lighter than her siblings, but once they find out that she is Indian, it's just full, oh, like in X, Y, and Z. Oh, like immediate questions about all the like the casino stuff that everyone deals with. But I noticed that people tend to try to find some like feature of hers to kind of romanticize more that they think aligns with what traditional images of Indigenous people should be. So they'll go for like just random parts of her or ask her weird questions that are straight out of just like John Wayne movies almost. And so I don't get a lot of that unless I bring up my grandmother, really, especially where I live, because we're far away from where the rest of my family lives in Oklahoma and Arkansas. And I feel like they get more of it than I personally do. But I can see that, and hearing my uncle talk about stuff, especially since he tries to, I think there was a time where he would kind of lean into it more, but as time's gone on, it kind of fell out of favor for him. So it's almost like we have to balance that if you're trying to fit into it, which has only been the real parallel to what I've experienced personally.
Thank you. I think for me, one thing that stands out with the old tropes or stereotypes is when I was abroad, there was this person that was selling like wood carvings, right? And they're really good, right? And there was one where there are several of them where it was like he carved a native person, like his face with an eagle here, very stereotypical stuff with the wolf, you know. And my friend was like, "Hey Rick, that's you, right? You're just playing around, you know." And I was like, "Shut up!" And that guy, the carver, was like, "No, it's not." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, I don't. We're both like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "All natives are dead. All natives are gone." I was just like, "Is that what you believe?" Like, I was like, "Oh my god!" I remember another time, and this was here in the U.S. Somebody said, "There's no such thing as a full-blooded native." Even that itself has so many weird nuances, like blood quantum, and like almost like your asses were disappearing, and like if we get too thinned out, whatever, then the real ones won't be around no more. Not knowing there's so many communities, and the blood quantum is not a real thing that we should be advocating for either, So I think, but I mean, on media itself, it's like, it's weird because I think the one older movie, I think the oldest movie I remember watching is either that Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman.
Oh God, yeah.
Or like, that obviously definitely with wolves. The older movies. I've never watched Indian in the Cupboard. For some reason, I was like never really appealing to me. I've never watched it, dude.
If you're around my age, that's kind of weird. Because I'm a mid to elder millennial, and that movie was so big in the early '90s.
God, it was. Oh my god!
But actually, I have a little claim to fame with that one. Is that my aunt, who is a big mountain, did the gun spinning tricks for that movie.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, like God, like bringing up like Little Bit. I feel like I'm the only one who ever brings up Little Big Man anymore, but that was god awful. For anybody who doesn't know, Dustin Hoffman plays this. Was he like adopted or like stolen or something? Okay. That's another one of the tropes, is that all these like one of the main things in order to get a quote unquote native story out there is that you have to have a white person in the forefront, and that white person has usually been stolen or adopted, or both stolen and then adopted, or something like that. Like, okay, things like this probably did happen, but there's also way more ways of looking at like kinship when it comes to Indigenous communities, especially at this time when, like if you find a child, like you might put them with a family, and that's just it's not insidious. They always try to make it like this really insidious thing. It's not insidious. It's giving the child to somebody who will take care of them, kind of thing. But Dustin Hoffman playing God, I don't even know if you could call that red face. It's like on like layered red white face kind of thing. But the one that I grew up with is that my dad is the white side of my family, and he is completely obsessed with John Wayne movies. So I grew up on John Wayne movies, and the one thing that he always told me is that I should like the John Wayne movies that were directed by John Ford, because John Ford would try to hire real natives to be in the background. And those were the narratives that were supposed to be more sympathetic, and that they would give the natives, who were often not the main antagonist, but an antagonist in the movie, give them like this noble things, like, well, we're trying to save our people, or trying to have a home for our people, et cetera, et cetera. So there's always like a reason to understand them, but it could never just be the Native people story. It had to be the John Wayne story with some Native people in the background who were given this like sympathetic lens to them. But still, you know, you got to be out there just hooping and hollering and standing up on the ridge watching the cowboys in the ravine and all of those tropes. But when I was a kid, I got the same thing about all natives are dead, they don't exist anymore. I got that a lot, especially because my family was quite a public family. We did educational shows, etc. So I like my family did shows for the schools that I went to, and I had kids coming up to me afterwards saying that we were lying because all Indians are dead.
Oh my God. That's wild.
And like, oh geez, some of the other tropes. I have been called the S slur for Indigenous women, not knowing that it is a slur. I will not be saying it on here. Y'all can get creative and try to figure it out on your own. I've been called that. I've been called, since moving to England, I've been called a red Indian to my face lots and lots of times. I hate that one. I hate that one so much. But yeah, when it comes to a lot of the older movies, they really rely on the noble savage kind of trope, the dying race, all of these kind of you could be noble, but you're dead. You're disappearing. You're not to be seen. That Indians only exist in the late 1800s and no further forward. But then I guess we come to more modern media. So we start coming up into my childhood, and my childhood was marked specifically by my special interest, Disney's Pocahontas. So Disney's Pocahontas came out when I was, I think, 6 years old. And that has been like a blanket over my life for the rest of my life, is dealing with this movie. So Mark, you're younger than me. Have you been impacted by Disney's Pocahontas at all?
Just I think a couple times whenever we studied it in school, she was used as an example countless times. Just totally like, oh yeah, you kids know. Like this. I can't think of any other examples. So here's a cartoon character, kids, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But not like no one using her name to like describe anything. It's just been the totally romanticizing it. I think people my age kind of don't have the same like rose-colored glasses about it. Even though we all watched it incredibly young. I remember watching it a lot. But I don't think there's quite as like the same tone to it, I think, with us.
You know, I think I will say first, you know, I've never watched John Wayne movies. It's never been. It's like, you know, I want to watch these movies, but I think, and the good thing about, even though some of these movies have really bad representation, Native people still have some humor on them. Like they still quote them, you know, they pull memes out of them, you know, and I think, you know, we know it's shitty, the representation, but we still use it within ourselves. It's weird, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. I mean, but now we have better representation, this newer stuff, and I think the memes that come out of that and the quotes, you know, it's better for the younger generation than us older people, you know. So
yeah, I think that fits really easily. So my sister and I didn't grow up together, but my sister is only a couple years younger than me, and she really latched on to Disney's Pocahontas, and that kind of dovetails with what you're saying, is that it might have been shitty representation, but it was representation, period, in an environment where you aren't seeing people who look like you, people who have the same values or the same traditions as you. You're not seeing that reflected back at you in popular media, especially if you're growing up outside of your traditional community. So you could, if you're urban native, if you're adopted, if you're, all of these reasons why you wouldn't be growing up with your traditional community, and you're looking for somebody that looks like you, maybe talks like you, has something that you recognize. It's the only thing that you could grab a hold of. So while I was growing up closer to my family and didn't like Pocahontas from the get-go, my sister did not have that same experience. So she really held on to Pocahontas as like her one thing that represented her in this sea of media that none of it resembled her whatsoever. So I think that also works with like natives are funny as hell, and we have to be.
Y'all are hilarious.
You had to deal with it in the last couple of weeks, dealing with my family. Like, it is just
last couple of weeks I've been dealing with it since I've known you.
And did you realize that I am the nice one comparatively? I
realize that y'all remind me of, I don't want to use that trope of the Italians and the natives, but like the very similar. Very similar.
Are you coming to take our jobs again?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Put you in a black wig.
Dig up Iron Eyes Cody and fucking put him back on.
Oh my god.
But no, the humor is hilarious. Y'all are fucking hysterical. When your mom came at me with the buffalo bone, that shit was priceless.
I wish I would have seen that. I wish I could have seen it. I was busy dealing with something behind the door, so I didn't get to see it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good bring up point, how they used a lot of, even back in very old stuff, there was a lot of red face going on. And Iron Eyes Cody he lived it. He lived that red face, and he just was like, to the point that he became pretending himself, right? And people really believed he was native. And it goes back to the stereotype of what natives should look like, blah, blah, blah. And I think it was brought up a little bit in the, I don't know if you have seen that documentary, Real Indians, is REEL.
By Sterling Harjo, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think it's odd. I mean, he married a native woman and he relived the part, and it's, to me, strange. I'm not saying it's right. It's not. I mean, I talk about pretending all the time, but I think it's the red face in Hollywood, the history of it is just, I mean, they have a lot of, it's not just red face, it's like black face, like in the Asian, what's it called, yellow face? All these really weird names for misappropriation. Like it's like it's itself. Like it's just
Then you have like the whole genre of like spaghetti westerns that like those are all Italians in the background. Like it's like they're not native. Like they're all Italians. So it's fucking wild. Probably my uncles and my cousins.
Yeah, not even the land is, because it's in Italy.
Yeah, exactly. Mamma mia. I have a question as a white person about tropes, about a specific trope, and I want to know if this is a thing. It goes back to the way Indigenous people talk in movies, especially older ones, like this very flat, monotoned accent. And it seems like is that like a thing that was like put on, like that was forced upon, or like actors were told to, you have to sound like this? It's like no inflection. It's very just, you know what I'm talking about? That's always weird. Yeah, I was about to say like that. I've hung around enough of you people to understand that it's not how y'all talk.
You.
Like you were gonna say, I've hung enough of you people.
Oh my fucking god, Mark.
You said that at first. I caught that. I don't think you can slip away from that. Okay.
If anybody wants to take this, go ahead.
It's that res accent. Yeah, everybody. Yeah. I think that's the other issue.
I don't want to imitate it, but y'all know what.
No, I think it's to the point where like these people, or I don't know if they're native or not, but they're trying to imitate the res accent on TikTok. It's super cringe, right? We don't know how TikTok is. TikTok itself is cringe. Oh, yeah. But you get the Rex accent, the forced Rex accent, the fake Rex accents. There's no way I can do. I stutter, so it's one of those things. So I don't even try it.
Like any accent that is honestly come by is valid, because they're speaking a lot of times in these movies. They're supposed to be somebody who is brought up speaking another language and then forced to speak English at some point. So it is an accent. It is just an accent. So I don't know, like, would I ask you, why do all Italians who speak English sound like that? Like, it's just an accent.
Hey, whoa.
However, like there is still res accent. There are still res accents all the way through Canada and the United States, and they do vary. It's not like there is one res accent, but there is one that's kind of codified as what everybody knows is that sound. But yeah, I mean, it's just like anybody else who was learning English as a secondary language.
That makes sense. Yeah. Holy shit. I realize a lot of the Italian Americans, especially the ones in New York that I know, really do talk like stereotypical, especially the ones that like grew up speaking Italian and like learned English. Like my mom's friend from Sicily, like he really does talk like this. And it's like my mom, real quick. I don't mean to, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna shut up. But she did one time say, Sal, you've been here for 40 fucking years. Speak English. Why do you talk like that? He's like, I'm out of here. It's just like, I was like,
some
holy
people,
shit.
you know, I noticed that
really
within the Mexican community, some people, you know, they came here and they learn English and they speak English very well. And some people come here and they learn English, but they maintain the accent, not because they want to, it's because that's just something they maintain. So some people, like, it depends how everybody works. Some people will live forever with that accent. I think it's fine, right? I think if that English wasn't their first language, I mean, you know, it's, to me, it's good that they learn English, because that's a hard language to learn, right? So let alone, you know, having to speak perfectly. I mean, yeah.
I've been living in England mostly on for 14 years now. And I do not carry over a British or an English accent at all. I soften my American accent down when I'm here and I'm speaking to British people. But
do they tell you you have an American accent?
Oh yeah, and they ask me why I don't have an English accent yet. Because I don't want to. Like, I've literally made the choice. I don't want to. I soften mine down because I don't want to have the same conversation every time when I meet a new British person. There's, oh, where are you from? I'm from such and such. Oh, why'd you move here? This is why. Oh, how come? Because my husband is English. Like, I have that conversation like 4 or 5 times a day. So if I soften my accent down, they don't ask the questions.
You just have cards with all the answers. You just hand them to people.
Laminated, very nice. Like, this is how many times you people ask.
What if I may ask another question?
No.
Okay. The council has spoken. What's some good representation? Is there any
we could move into more modern stuff, because we are, like I said, kind of in a golden age of Indigenous representation in media.
Yeah.
So to add on to that, obviously nothing is perfect, but like even with the good stuff, like there's probably still some negative tropes or like stuff that y'all probably would see that I wouldn't. But like, because I've heard mixed, like I've heard mostly good things about reservation dogs, for example. Like that's probably like one of the top tier right now. But I also I've heard some negative things. So it's just like,
can I hear about the negative? I don't think I've really heard negative.
It was like mostly the deal with like some hairstyles, and then specifically like the dad who was a rapper. There was like some other stuff, like just some really, to be honest, in my own opinion, very nitpicky, chronically online takes. And I was just like, y'all really, like, come on.
One of the ones, just to add on to that one while I'm thinking of it, one of the ones that I heard is that the representations of skin tones of Indigenous people is not wide enough, because we're mixed with anybody that you can mix with. You know, I'm half white. We've got Afro-Indigenous people, we have Asian Indigenous people. So like their visual representation was not wide enough, but that's what I've heard. Anyway, please do go ahead.
I guess so I guess for y'all, like what would come to mind as like positive representation in film and TV?
Well, I think my Pocahontas, I guess, would be Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. They don't really say that she's indigenous, but just by the way that they've modeled the water-bending culture in the North and the South Pole is very closely related to real cultures. And their family structures, the way that they typically treat women, that one of the arcs was her only being seen as a healer by this patriarchal figure, and then she finally gets to fight and support herself. And she's like all serious, but then she's balanced out by her brother, which is the comic relief, and he's also what the equivalent to being indigenous would be. That was kind of, of course it's fictional, it's a fictional place, so they can't really use that language. But I remember seeing the way that she interacted with her grandmother was similar to the way that I've interacted with mine and my grandmother's siblings, and it mirrored more of what I was familiar with when I was younger. And besides, that's the only like racial or culturally similar cartoon character I can think of that I related to really hard, that wasn't like a gay character or a queer character or something that could have been coded that way. Katara was really important to who I was as a child. And I think there wasn't a lot of, especially since it was mixed with a lot of Asian cultures, I can't remember a really negative trope that they might have used for them. Besides, I think the Fire Nation, not to get to the political like climate of this fake place, but the people who were trying to colonize the land had a very negative view of the Water Tribe people, and it mirrored very closely to that. And I think that was the most, but it wasn't negative, it was just something that was a little more tropey.
Thank you.
That was very Zoomer, Mark. I loved it.
Yeah, and we're not talking about Spirit, even though Spirit has a couple good things. Spirit was voiced by a white man. I know he's an indigenous character. The horse is an indigenous character, but the person that voiced him is a white man. Yes, the female horse had a feather in her hair, but the horse was not.
Oh my God.
I think it was Matt Damon. Matt Damon, if you're listening, you should donate all royalties from that movie.
Oh my! I was just thinking about how when I was asking for things that this show should be sponsored by, you talked about Spirit, and I was going to add in, this show is also sponsored by all of the horse girlies who realized they were furries because of
His eyebrows.
Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron's human eyebrows.
And they made him like smirk. Like he smirked at like the rustler or whatever his character was. It's so weird. So odd. Lion King and Spirit. Pick one.
It's like me saying, "Oh yeah, Italian, popular Italian."
Oh my God,
Mario! I love Mario.
I have a question for everybody here. Has anybody seen, what was it, Rutherford Falls?
Oh, the Peacock one? No.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't have Peacock.
Yeah.
So I didn't have it back then. Yeah. So I heard it was good. I heard it was funny, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
yet.
that's what I heard. Like, my sister was very, very excited about it because the indigenous lead is a white appearing fat woman. And she's like, oh my God, she's just like us. Like, yes, and I still don't have Peacock because I live over here and those things don't work like that. But yeah, she really liked it. It got canceled like most good things get canceled. But Yeah, how about you, Rick? What do you see as positive representation, good representation?
I like Reservation Dogs. I think it didn't play too much in, they didn't really give like stereotypical tropes. They actually like, I think they made fun of it in some parts, you know. I think there was a lot of like very emotional parts in the show where I think they were really wholesome, you know. So it's different because I watch it with my kids, right? And I think to myself, like, I didn't have this when I was a kid, right? I
Mhm.
think it makes, especially my daughter, a little bit more proud that she's native, right? A little bit more like, oh, that's representation. And the other one is, I would say, Prey, because I knew the movie was coming out, you know? And for people that don't know, Prey was also dubbed in Comanche language. And they had Dr. Catherine Brenner, who is the Comanche Nation language department, um, the person in charge of the department. And
Mhm.
and there's also Jane Myers, who's a Comanche artist, to advise in the movie. So when the movie came out, I didn't tell my kids the movie was coming out on purpose. So one day I put the movie on and I put it specifically on Comanche dub, and it was just like, I thought it was like, what? This is a thing. It was like, this is the coolest thing because they're taking classes, Comanche language classes. I think seeing their reaction to that's really cool. It's like when you have I don't know if anybody here has kids when they're babies and you give them ice cream for the first time. You want to see their reaction, So you like, I put the movies on and I try to see their reaction. And I'm like, this is really cool because I know they like it. So we watched it both in Comanche and in English, but we're also Predator fans. We watch Predator. Watch all the
Right.
Predators,
Yeah.
Alien versus Predator, blah blah blah. So I was like, this is really cool because it's like sci-fi with natives, and I think they did a really good job, and there's obviously the little things that I was like, but I was like, but I don't want to focus on that. But overall, it was a good um it was a good native movie, and I think we should have more native movies where we are dubbed in our languages, you know, to preserve
Mhm.
it. Because right now there's only like, I would say, 5 fluent Comanche speakers in out of 17,000, right? And
Mhm.
they're all elderly. So we're here trying to learn, trying to, preserve the language. And I think it's super important to get kids interested, to get kids to use like, hey, yeah, learning, and I think that stuff like that, I am very grateful for.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember having those thoughts a lot that like my sister's kids are getting representation in everyday media that I didn't have and that my mom's generation definitely didn't have, and
Mhm.
that it's creating um a more rounded uh target to head towards, because a lot of what kids do, they learn through mirroring what they see. They do it themselves. And so when you're given such a small mirror by having no representation when you're younger, you feel kind of out of place. So now that they're getting like this more representation in, like I said, this kind of golden era of Indigenous media, I think that can only end up being a good thing. um so yeah, I'm really excited about all of that. things are
Have you seen
things are
Prey?
I have not seen it. I'm not a big fan of like horror, like that kind of horror. I like
Mhm.
ghosts. But I've heard only good things about that one. And I know that, again, my sister is the one who, she watches all this stuff and she tells me about it. So,
Mhm.
like, so that sounds really good for through her lens, that it was really good. um Gosh, there was something else. Oh, another thing that I wanted to add is that these more positive representations we're getting now, it's not a surprise, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, that we're getting this better representation when Indigenous people are at the heads of these things. So the head writers of Reservation Dogs are Indigenous themselves, or Indigenous comics, like really established Indigenous comics and media makers. And then you have very knowledgeable people who are at the head of doing like the language dubs for Prey. So you see that like it's literally better when you put people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about into these positions of power in media. Is there any other shows that we need to talk about? What else has come out?
I do want to talk about one show that I noticed not many Native people talk about, and it's called The Sun.
I've not heard of that one.
See, yeah, it's actually about Comanches, and like it's in Texas. It's about Comanches, Mexicans, and white Mexican settlers and white settlers, and it goes from like the present to the past. It's about like a white boy, or a young man that got adopted by Comanches, and Zahn is in it. Zahn's also in Reservation Dog. Zahn is a cop, right? The tribal police. So true story. I was an extra in the show. Right? Yeah. So the backstory to that is that for the Comanche Nation, since it was a Comanche show, the Comanche Nation, they had, teamed up with the Comanche Nation and said, hey, who wants to audition? So I was like, oh, I want to put my daughter's name, right? So I did. I put my daughter's picture. I sent it to them. Like, okay, it's going to be filmed in Texas. I was in Texas. It was like an hour and a half away. So I was like, why not, right? So I was taking her there, and my wife also got picked up as a background, person, and I was taking my daughter because I had to do costume checks. I really got to see how shows were made in the background, the background stuff, the scheduling, and then takes after take after take, and it was like, this is a lot of work, But what's funny is that I was taking my daughter, and then one day they were like, oh, Daniel couldn't make it. Can you take his place? You're like the same size as him. I was cool, man. We're like, I'll do it, So they fit me real quick, and I was like, yeah, I can wear this. And then I show up to like one of the first, shoots, and I was like, Danny was there. I was like, Danny, what the hell, man? It's you. It was him. Like, I know him, So I was just like, we were like, all these Comanches got together. It was really cool because all these Comanches got together and we're like, hey, who's your folks, blah, blah, blah. Got to know each other. And then I was like, some people that I knew, I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. And Danny actually continued to act, right? And other Native stuff too. It's very small time, like very independent films, but there's a scene this is for the second season, not the first season. So the second season, we shot a scene in a teepee. It was the weirdest thing because they shot the scene in a teepee, but the teepee was in a warehouse, right? So like, of course, they're shooting in the teepee, so it doesn't matter where the teepee is. So there's so many. That's where they had a bunch of like the stages, for the show, and there's one scene where they're talking about getting a map and where the forts were at or something like that. And I was sitting in there, and they're passing out a bowl of like brisket, right? Because in the scene we're passing the bowl to each other, and I was like, I didn't eat, so this is cool, man. So they're doing the scene over and over. It was like hours of the same scene at different angles, like every little angle. I was okay. So the director's like, hey, man, he told me, he was like, you need to like hold your breath because you have a constant smile on your face. I guess he wanted like an angry Comanche, And I was just like,
stoic, real stoic.
Yeah, I was holding my breath, and he kept stopping. And he was like, I thought he was gonna pull me out because I saw him whispering to somebody, and they were like looking at me. I was like, fuck me, dude. Like I was like, I want to get pulled out of this scene, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this shit. So, but I was eating. I was focused on eating too, and then one of the last times I was eating a piece of brisket and started choking on it. right? And I was just like really choking on it. But they were filming, so I was like holding it in. I was like, oh my God. And then they were cut, and I was like, spitting it out. They were like, that's perfect. I was like, ah! I was just like, what the hell? I was choking.
Did they use that shot? Jeez.
Oh my God, yes.
But in that scene in the show, my whole face is like a fade out scene, right? So I was like, oh my God. So I looked angry, right? So I was just like, this is the weirdest shit. So like everybody was texting me when the show came out, the episode. They're like, oh, I saw you on TV. I was just like, I know. It's weird. But yeah, the sun is cool. Like there are some things I think they rushed because they filmed a lot more than they put out, obviously, right? But I was like, some of the story, I feel like it was rushed in the end. And the ending was really shitty, especially for the Mexican. Wait, no, yeah, it was for the son of the one of the sons that left Eli, the father. Yeah, one of the grandson, he got really fucked over, and that was kind of shitty. And it was like, oh, they ended it kind of shitty, you know. But yeah, it's a cool show.
Wow.
That sounds awesome. Where can you find it?
Your
Just
face
anywhere?
choking. It was like, oh great, that's perfect. That's the real stoic, angry face that we want.
Yeah.
Blood, sweat, and tears went into that.
Hilarious.
This is the first time I've talked about this publicly too. So
Hell yeah.
You heard it
I
here
almost
first, folks.
died making this scene. You better fucking like it.
But it was cool though, because there was like, yeah, I got to see like you just watching the effects, like the explosion. There's one scene where they were getting raided and there was explosions, and I was like, it was in nighttime. I was like, oh, this is really cool, you know. And watching it from the side, I filmed some stuff with my phone. You're not supposed to, you know. But yeah, but I was just like, yeah, you know, memories. So
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
I remember a meme that I posted. Going back to the Yellowstone meme, but I did post. I remember a meme that I posted that got controversy on Facebook and from white people. Y'all remember that movie, The Road to El Dorado, that cartoon movie?
Yeah.
I never watched it.
About how what is the other trope is that the like the friendly the friendly colonizers,
The nice colonist, yeah.
the nice colonizer came over and teamed up with the good natives to take down the bad native. Everyone's just like, dude, what the fuck? Like these guys are supposed to be like with Cortez or one of those guys, like, horrible people, and it's just like mind blown that people are like, no, they're the good guys. Blah 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 blah. I was like, no, this movie's trying to make you think that like those guys were cool because they're stupid and they're like, look at us, when like they're bloodthirsty, fucking horrible Spanians. Like,
That's what propaganda does to you.
I was like, good God, man.
So wait, I have a question. So in that movie, do they constantly get played as good people, or did you see how they're really bad?
No, they're constantly. There's
There's a small
They're
amount of
goofy and
time where
silly.
they're like, oh well, maybe they're gonna fuck him over, and then it's like, no, they didn't fuck him over. Like that's
it's like you take if you took Dumb and Dumber and like made them like Spanish and like put them as
That's kinda
cartoons,
weird.
and they were like, oh yeah, we're the good like goofy ones, we're the goofy colonizers. It's like, that's not how that was, bud.
yeah.
It's kind of like the CIA, the goofy CIA guy from Black Panther. He's
Oh
the
my
good-
God.
Like my favorite colonizer. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Ooh. Oh man.
Oh yeah. If we still go by the old joke that all of the indigenous people gets to keep 3 people. When we're sending everybody back, we get to pick 3 who stay. And the person who was going to vouch for you, Nelson, is now gone. So you're going to be real nice.
No.
Maybe you can go into Mark's 3, but I don't know. Do you
No,
like
remember
him
this?
enough, Mark?
You're gonna put us on the reservation in like New
Oh,
England,
yeah.
so, like on Long Island, so we can cook pizza.
The Italian reservation.
The Italian reservation.
That's where you go for pizza.
Oh, I think I see that. Look, I googled the El Dorado movie. It's a cartoon, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Road to El
I've
Dorado,
seen pieces of it. Yeah, the hyper sexualized
Yeah.
women character and the
Mhm.
evil native person. I've seen clips of that movie. I've never watched the whole thing. I've never been. I don't know. It doesn't seem appealing to me. You know.
No, it's extremely
That's
dated.
another thing, right? Is the extremely sexualized woman or daughter character, and then her dad is just like a mountain,
Yeah.
big, scary,
It's like-
ugly. Like, oh, don't mess with that guy.
I
like
will say
that kind of thing.
I will say the Pocahontas movie had the best line where he's like, "These white men are dangerous." I
Yes.
was like,
No,
yes.
because you keep using that one.
There's a whole song, bro. We got a verse in their song that says a lot of things that people actually say. But it's a cartoon.
No, but what do you think about Reservation Dogs? Or wait, who here has seen Prey? No,
Nobody's watched it. Oh,
I know that's
Sorry.
usually my thing.
Nelson,
but I
you're a
haven't had
bad
access
ally.
to it.
I know. I watched I think the first season, maybe like half of the first season of Reservation Dogs. I liked it. It was good. I just like kind of tapered off but yeah, I thought Reservation Dogs was good, but I haven't seen Prey now.
I think the second season is better than the first. It's my own opinion.
I do got to get back into it because it is is hilarious. It's hilarious. It can be sad. It can be it's great. I think it's really really awesome writing.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Dallas Goldtooth being Dallas Goldtooth.
Yeah.
There's always that on top. That's where you got all of your jokes that you share to me now.
Yeah.
From him. I remember when he was just a comic on YouTube. And now he's fucking everywhere.
That shit is so funny. Oh my god.
Just as an aside, because I just thought of it, there are Indigenous like kids TV shows now, like little kid TV shows now. There's Spirit Rangers, which is either out or coming out soon. And oh gosh, what's the other one? Oh, the far north girl. There's one from like Alaska or northern Canada or something like that. Little girl. So yeah, like little kids are getting some more representation now as well, which seems nice. I remember when I was a little kid watching like kids TV shows and always looking for somebody that resembled anything like me on there. And that's one of the weird things. Like when I was a kid, because they wouldn't have Native people, like Native kids on kids TV shows or anything like that, the people that I always identified with the most were Asian and Latina characters, like constantly, because they were the ones who were like, oh, I can identify with them because at least they're not white. There's that. Yeah, geez.
I think to kind of not move away from TV, but there was a video game that was actually made by it's an Alaskan community, a Native community. It's called Never Alone. I don't know.
That's a really good game. That is a really good game.
Yeah, my daughter loves that game. I think it was really cool because when I was in undergrad, I brought that game up, and then we watched the clip, and then somebody in that class was like, "That's my grandma. I didn't know she did this." I was like, "I got a car now." So I was like, "Oh, how cool!" Like, it's a small world, Yeah. So I think, it was really cool. I recommend for people to check out. I had it on PS4, so yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really cute game. Anybody like, if you just like puzzle games, go check it out. But there's good reasons to check it out besides just liking puzzle games, because they had language speakers involved. They had like the visual representations were things that just like they felt comfortable to me because they're things that are more close to what I recognize from that. But yeah, everybody go look for Never Alone. I think it came out in 2014. Like it can't be a whole lot of money to get now. Go play it.
Yeah. There was one movie that came to mind for me because as a white guy, I love war movies. It was like Wind Talkers. Like it's all about the Navajo Code Talkers, and it's always it got me really thinking about like how I think we mentioned it before. It's just like when it comes to Native representation, like it's always like, oh, they literally saved the day, and then they still get treated like shit. And it's just it's like one of those things. It's like I think a lot of people kind of catch on to that, especially white, like obviously white people like just don't catch on to that like they played such an important role and then people are like, oh, it's such a cool movie, but then like forget that they came back home and were treated like shit. So and it's also it's also like goes into that trope of like, oh, like these Native people had to save white people. It's just like it's never like them. What am I trying to say? It's always like I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's just like, if y'all did y'all watch Wind Talkers at all or no?
Yeah, Adam Beach.
Yeah, it's
No.
just like, how do I put it? It's like you have like I don't know. It just always was. It was like off to me that like everyone just like kind of forgets that like they did such an important thing, and it was like to fit in. It's like they had to do this in order to win the approval of white people, and without white people being like, "Holy shit, you all just fucking saved the day," and they come back home and they're treated like shit.
I think we, also when I watch these movies, obviously they're not accurate. We should always take it with a grain of salt. But some people, like, they don't know history, so when they see something like Wind Talkers, they're like, they don't understand. They don't know that there was other tribes,
Yes,
other communities that had
Yes.
community. I hate the word tribe, but there are communities that had Wind Talkers. Had Cold Talkers as well. And I think that's really cool history. And I think. But then, during that time too, you get to realize that when do we enter World War II, and natives became citizens in 1924. So it's not that long. I mean, we barely were citizens. Some people that entered that war were not citizens when they were born, right? So it's wild to me that that these people some of them were not born, quote unquote, U.S. citizens, but became, code talkers to save the country, And I think, in my opinion, the U.S. exploited that indigenous language to win the war, And not a lot of people know that the Comanche code talkers were one of some of the first radio transmission on D-Day on the beaches. So, like, we have, we were sent in the front lines to die. Wow, 4 colonizers, and it's really weird, and I think it's really odd that that happened. But I think there's another movie too, Flags of Our Father, where Adam Beach also Adam Beach plays Ira Hayes.
Isn't he like in every movie?
That's what
we talked about this.
I was waiting for that little like folk hero creation with like the Ballad of Ira Hayes. The Johnny Cash song. I'm not sure if anyone sang it before him, but that's another one of the wow, that is a true American hero. I'm not reading into this anymore. I'm stopping there. Just that story of it.
I do want to say something about Anna Beach. So I was really hyped for him in Suicide Squad, right? The first one.
Yeah.
And then he just dies like really weak.
Immediately.
I was like, right away. I was like, bro, what the fuck? I watched this movie because of you.
Exactly. I mean, like, I was going to Comic-Con here in England right before that movie came out, and one of the things was that they had some of the costumes from the film there, and I was like, oh my god, there's Adam Beach's costume in, like, I'm looking at it right now, and then I see the movie and he's dead like 4 lines in.
I got mad. Yeah. I was like, fuck this movie. Why movie so general, buddy?
It sucked, but maybe like hopefully, like, this is not how it happened, but in my mind, I hope that he just like, he looked at this script and he says, well, I can make bank a little bit and just kill me 4 lines in so I don't have to do it the rest of this movie.
Yeah, that movie was god awful. Oh my god.
But like, I talked before about how, like, the few Native movie stars that there are, they are so typecast. If you need somebody, well, up until very recently, if you need somebody young and sexy, it's going to be Adam Beach. If you need somebody who's old and funny, it's going to be Graham Greene. If you need somebody who's old and stoic, or like middle-aged and stoic, it's going to be Wes Studi. It's like very, very typecast. And when it comes to like women Indigenous movie stars, like, God help you if you can think, like, I can think of some because I've made this my business, but most other people can't at all. Like, maybe in Canada you could think of a few, but like in the States, almost nobody knows of any of them. And it's such a tight typecasting. But now that Adam Beach is aging out of the young and sexy role, I wonder who's going to, probably Martin Sensmeyer. He might be the young and sexy one now.
You know, I think that, what's her name? Irene Bedard, right?
Yeah.
She was, so I went to Comic-Con. I was like, oh, she's at Comic-Con, but she didn't show up. I was just like, I was like, I kept going by her table. I was like, I want to get your autograph. I was like, Also, that lady from, she was, what's her name? I don't even know her name, but she was Adam Sandler's girlfriend in that Waterboy, right? She also played in that witch movie.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. She's indigenous?
Fibers of Bulk?
Oh.
Yeah, she's not native, but I'm saying I'm a fan. You know?
Oh, she wasn't there either.
Yeah, I was like,
Oh my God, I loved her in Waterboy. That shit was awesome.
Typical Indian time. Irene Bedard doesn't show up.
But I was just like, oh, dude. They had all the cast from what's that movie, Sandlot? The Sandlot?
Oh, yeah.
So I was a jerk. I didn't pay. I was just like, I just walked by their table, was taking pictures. I was like, click, click, click. I don't need it. I paid $20 per person. Come on, get out of here.
I did that with Mads Mikkelsen once. Like before he got really, really famous. Like he was a known actor, but he wasn't super famous. He was at a Comic-Con, and I was like walking through by where the tables were, and like made eye contact with him and snapped a picture and kept walking. Like, sorry, Mads, I'm not spending $45 to go say hi. Yeah. But yeah, like, didn't I talk to you about that before, about like the extreme typecasting?
I was like in every film. Yep.
There's only 3 actors, and it's these 3. Now we have Zahn who, like, so he's cop. If he's going to be in any movie, he's going to be a cop, or he's going to be a hard ass. Zahn McClendon. Okay. Gosh, who else? Yeah, Martin Sensmeyer, but he's just eye candy in most movies, because he's the one that you always like, oh my God, his hair. He's super long, beautiful hair.
We have a whole new generation now of these actors and actresses that came out of Rutherford Falls, and Reservation Dogs. So I think I think it's good. We have this new generation, younger actors and actresses, and I think I think from then, you said, we saw Das Goldtooth on YouTube, and now he's like, a funny comedian on the show. But I think well, that's what we're gonna keep building, especially with the internet, because the internet, we have a lot of people with a lot of that, are on TikTok. I know, but they're on TikTok or they make like comedic skits, but with themselves. I'm like, this dude's really funny, Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, I won't be surprised if we see some of these people get picked up for shows.
What's his
or for talents,
What's his face was in Reservation Dogs, the guy that blew up on TikTok because he was singing that Fleetwood Mac song, Drinking the Cranberry.
The dog face.
Yeah.
But one of the things, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying, because you said that you talk a lot about pretendians, but one of the things that I've noticed now is that because we're getting more established companies want to put Indigenous representation in there because it gets them views. So they hire somebody. So like we had, what was it? New Mutants, I think, had Danny Moonstone, who is an X-Men, like the character in X-Men is named Danny Moonstone, and they hired somebody who was supposed to be Indigenous to play her. But the first thing that I remember is like Indian country, the first thing you hear is, oh, they hired such and such actress who you've never heard of to play this Indigenous character. And then everybody rushes like, oh, do you know who her folks are? Which nation does she come, which community does she come from? And like, you're starting to see like the pretendians are getting called out like before they can even get into a movie now. Like, if they have to hide it really hard if they're not getting in something now. And like this, it's so amazing to see like how fast people will go, because that's like your standard greeting in Indian country is to say like what nation you are, what community you're from, who your folks are, when you first meet them. So not being able to trace back somebody who says they're Indigenous to play something on a media role, ooh, that gets juicy real fast.
It's red face because it's red face right away, man. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we don't want. It's the same thing when Johnny Depp played Tonto, right?
Mhm.
It's red face, and people were like, "Oh no," but he got adopted to Comanche Nation. I'm like, that was a whole debacle. And I'm like, me being Comanche, I did not agree to that. And that there's a whole story behind. I didn't want to sit on internet. I don't want to get crucified by some people, but I think I don't agree that he got adopted. Well, I can't disagree because it's not for me to say who was adopted and who's not. But to say that wasn't red face because he was adopted, to me is bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I think, I think in the movie it was shitty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was really bad. I mean, they rightfully made a big fuss, but then the movie was like, man, like nobody watched it.
Yeah, it's fucking sucked.
So, but I think that's the thing. We want people to represent us. Because just like you said earlier, we come from so many different shades. Native people are not just a monotone of brown. We're white, mixed with black, mixed with Asian, mixed with Arab, and there's so many different looking natives, right? There's no phenotype anymore. And I think it's now I don't know, man. Like, and I think all these stories are very unique. We come from so many different backgrounds, and we learn from different cultures that are family members that are not native, and they learn from us. It's a very beautiful thing, So I think for people to want to play our roles, I think one was that young lady that plays in Yellowstone. I think Adam Beach made a statement about her, right? How he said that she was a native and he was protesting that, he made a statement about somebody. I think it was her because he was a controversy that she was a native. Right?
Oh yeah, okay, I've got it. Actor Adam Beach calls for boycott of Yellowstone, citing casting of Asian American actress to play a native character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think so. Yeah. So when I watched that show yesterday, I was thinking about that article. I was just like, "Oh, that's her." Because I didn't, but to me, I was just like, "Why would they do that?" But a lot of these people, they slip through the cracks. I don't even want to. Before the show, we talked about it, but I don't know if I should bring it up. But there's people that slip through the cracks. Another person on that show that has sus background, right? And I think. And I tried to look into it because that person tends to be Comanche. And I called the enrollment office and I was just like, hey, do you know who so-and-so is? And they were like, we're trying to find who so-and-so is. And so is a bunch of other Comanches. Like, we don't know who this person is, And I think they kind of did the same thing with, what's his name? Rudy Youngblood with Apocalypto. They're saying, oh, indigenous cast. But Rudy Youngblood is not Comanche. He's literally like adopted, like legally adopted. He was adopted and raised by Comanches, but he himself wasn't Comanche. So I don't know if they turn to say that he's native because of that, or that's But they say they claim to have a. Is he native? I don't know, but his biological family. I don't know, but I that was another thing that some Comanches were making a big fuss about, but yeah.
It says here that the person who is being talked about, Kelsey Asbiel, who is also in Wind River, which that is a clusterfuck that I'm not even going to get into. Wind River.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
So, quote, the Native American wife of main character John Dutton's son, Corey, whom she lives with on the reservation with her son. Asbiel's full name is Kelsey Asbiel Chow, and she is mixed race Asian American, according to her Wikipedia page, although she says she has Cherokee ancestry in an interview with the New York Times. I could have called it. But
I mean, the Cherokees are not hard to to track because there's so many people claiming Cherokee that
Mhm.
if you call the tribal tribal offices, like they will tell you most people, man, like most communities, most tribal governments, if you call their offices, they will help you, right? And I
Rather than
think
just hiring some person with long black hair who walks into your casting office.
yeah, man. But you can verify. I think we should verify. It's kind of like these people that are checkboxing native, but they're getting scholarships because let's be real. When I went to undergrad, I got a scholarship, and I was like, "What is this scholarship for?" And all to be transparent, it was at UC San Diego, and they were like, "Oh, because you have good grades." I was like, "Cool, man. I can accept the scholarship." Um, and I actually had another scholarship from somebody else. So it was just like, what's going on here, right? So it's like double dipping. I was like, what's going on? And when I actually tried to give back that scholarship, but they refused, and I felt kind of odd about it, right? I was like, why are you not taking the scholarship back? I already have a free ride, right? And then when within the first couple of weeks of school, they had a big announcement. And then they were like, they had me and another person, and they were like, "We finally have a native student in our school. We gave him scholarship."
Oh my
I
god.
was like, "What
That
if a
is so
person?"
odd.
Yeah, it's odd as fuck. They didn't tell me they were gonna do this, okay? And I was just like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then the other person that got scholarship just found out they were native like 2 months before. I was like, "Oh my god!" Right? I was like, and I told the school, I was like, "Look, can you give this to like a person that's from San Diego?" I grew up like an hour and a half north, but I was like, I can give it back. And like, no, you can't give it back. I was just like, I feel like a dick, right? But I was just like, what if somebody marked the box and they gave it to the wrong person, right?
Mm.
And that was my concern. I think there should be a process of calling the imagination. It's so and so native. Like this is his information for like acting job, academia. You know what I'm saying? Like anything that's in public, or anything that's actually like regarding I don't know, like native representation. Yeah, I call the tribal offices. Like this is a normal thing to do. We all do it. It's like, hey, this person is sus. What's going on? Yeah, like it happens.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like I think we've said before, in context with something else, that contrary to popular belief, there are people you can talk to and ask questions and be
Yeah.
like figured out. You don't have to just okay, you're here, so it must be true. Like, and just I don't know what this is. We just guess. Like, there's always like another route you can at least try, I guess.
So
Yeah.
what I think
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, what I think is happening is that they put out a casting call. We need X Indigenous person to play this role, and then like the door flies open, and you hear like flute music, and an eagle flies in, and then like in slow motion with the wind blowing through their long black hair, a very brown person walks through the door, and they're like, "You got the part. It doesn't matter if you can read the lines or not. Like that's it."
Yeah,
the eagle with the hawk sound effect.
Yeah. Super cut up, and it's just like, oh man, I gotta go to the gym.
It's just John Redcorn just walking in.
And then they ask that person to interpret their dreams and heal them afterwards.
Yeah, that's fucking odd. That's the it's weird because, and that's the other trope, is the John Redcorn from the King of the Hill cartoon, and there was some funny stuff in that show, but I think that character, making him out to be like the dude that's fucking the other dude's wife, I was like, oh, this is so bad, right? So that's just my interpretation with that. So I mean, like, there's no other community. Can you imagine if I were to go to like a casting call for French people, and then like I go to fucking France, I'm like, I'm French, and I start speaking nonsense and saying, I'm descending.
We.
Yeah,
Oh,
like see, I don't know who's the French king or whatever.
Don the Perignon.
Yeah, I'm like Marie Antoinette's great grandson or some shit. I don't know. And then people are gonna be like, "Who the fuck are you?"
My great great grandmother was the Queen of France.
We can't all be Senator Elizabeth Warren, okay? We all can't be Senator Warren. Was John Redcorn voiced by a Native American actor?
I don't even know.
Let's find out.
That's something I've always wondered. I've been afraid to look it up because I love King of the Hill so much.
I'd like to make an amendment. I know that the spirit rant was funny, but I think I was actually thinking of Brother Bear when I said Matt Damon. But still, same. I'm still right. So
I'm just fingers crossed, hoping that John Redcorn was voiced by a Native American actor.
The first one, Victor Aaron, says he is Native.
The second one, Jonathan Joss.
There were 2 John Redcorn actors?
Yeah.
No.
There was one for the first season and a second one for 2 to 13. But it doesn't say on Wikipedia.
Oh, no.
You didn't even notice.
Hashtag canceled.
I see Jonathan Josh in some TV shows. I think he was in Parks and Recreation, but I don't really know him. I can't really say. So
hurry up, someone adopt him quick.
No, it doesn't work like that, Nelson.
No, John Redcorn.
No, but I think as time goes by and there's more, hopefully there's with these shows and representation in media and movies, there's more Native people that want to get involved in. Sorry, my son's blowing his nose, but I think that there's hopefully there's more Native people that go into film. I think there is right now a lot of more than enough Native people that are in film when it comes to like directing or acting or producing, and I think they're going to come out. Like I said, the talent is online, and there's been some. I think I interviewed one person as a Navajo documentary person, right? And he did one about exposing Mormons within the Navajo, like the settler Mormons, and how the rhetoric is really racist, anti-Native.
Oh yeah,
his name, yeah. So, but that was a really good documentary. It's online, and I will send it to you. I gotta look him up.
Hell yeah!
It's a really good episode. He also did one, I think, on bear's ears, right? So I think that's yeah, but I think we're out there. I think that just because we don't see them in like the national spotlight doesn't mean that we don't exist. I mean, we have our own films. We have our own, like I said, skits. We have our own comedians. We have our own actors. We have very funny people, very serious people, very knowledgeable scholars itself. A lot of Indigenous scholars and a lot of Indigenous authors. It's just that we're not in the forefront because it doesn't suit settler narratives, because once our narratives start becoming the forefront, then we start challenging settler colonization, and people obviously don't like that, So they always want the Native people that are just they're friendly, not the ones that are going to bring in the hard issues, So that's my perspective on this.
What'd you call Kai? The magical Indian?
Yeah, the magic Indian who comes in and fixes everything and absolves all of the colonizers of guilt and can speak to eagles and can track 3-day-old bear tracks and all of that.
That's Mark, though. Mark can do that.
Look, just because you took a picture of both of us looking at a woodpecker in a tree.
Yeah, we just looked up and he was like, oh.
I'm literally
I paid attention to a bird.
Everyone and Rick, I'm driving, we're like in the car driving. Oh,
we're just living our life.
Mark and Kai at the same time.
Our
like,
faces out of
look
our
at
cell phone.
Look at that
once.
like red-tailed hawk over there. It's like, what the fuck? How did you see that?
We looked up.
Nelson.
No, they talk to you. I know it. You're hiding it from me. You could both can talk to all three of you can talk to animals. I know it.
Only
Nelson.
regional animals, I guess, if that's what you want.
I'm technically displaced, so I can't understand any of the animals in Florida. All the animals I can understand are up in Canada, and I'm just I'm not there, so I can't understand them.
I can't imagine what the British animals sound like.
They're just
They
being
sound
really
like
racist.
thick Cockney accents, like lip. Every time Kai, when you like walk in your backyard, all the
hedgehogs.
animals come around. I just picture like them just like fly on your shoulder, and you're like, zippity doo dah, and you just like, like the little raccoons and stuff running
so
around.
I'm the magic Indian who can talk to animals and also singing a song from Disney's most racist movie.
I know, right?
Oh, that's the yeah.
Mamma mia. But
well, Mark, do you have anybody have closing comments for this? Mark, you got anything you want to finish off with?
There's just like trying to stay away from things that are just retiring old narratives, like the story, the plot line in Red Dead, where it's, oh no, this tribe, there's like 5 of them in this village pushed up, and we're gonna help them, and then we're gonna betray them at the end. It's tired. Like, obviously no one needs that. It's only being entertained because you want the little romanticized story of being out west. There's other stuff available, and I'm glad that people are able to pursue that and actually put support into shows that deserve it, instead of just repeating the same washed up concept over and over.
I have a question. So, is Red Dead, is it a show or is it
It's a video game.
Oh yeah, I play that.
Yeah. And there's more if you actually want. The like bare minimum is that they did get actors who were actually Indian to voice them, but then it was like just tragedy. So bare minimum. But yeah, like we've mentioned things that are worth watching, worth supporting. And there's even other video games besides the one that we mentioned. You can just look it up. There's one that's called Tell Me Why, and it takes place in Alaska. And there's a storyline with some people who are Indigenous. I haven't made it quite through the video game, so I can't tell you the plot line to it. But it's not just... There's no need to be a side character or an arc anymore. It's being allowed to be well-rounded is a good thing, and I'm glad that it's getting as much traction as it is.
Yay.
Rick, you got anything you want to add for our final words?
Yeah, there was a movie that came out like a month ago. It's like something backslash or something slash. It's like Native kids in Alaska fighting some aliens or something like that. I'm not even sure the name.
Sounds awesome.
But yeah, it's like a horror sci-fi movie.
I watched an Indigenous zombie movie recently. That was pretty dope.
What's the name of it?
It was First Nations. I think it was in Canada. Hold on, let me look it up real quick.
So the one that you're talking about, Rick, is Slashback.
Yeah, Slashback. It was backslash. What the heck? No, yeah, I've been meaning to watch that. I want to watch that with my kids. But I think Native communities, our governments, we have a lot of enterprises, like, when it comes to our economies. I think one aspect we can invest in is shows and production companies, or even like talent agencies, Native talent agencies, that's controlled by Native government. I'm just throwing these ideas out there, just saying, so we can, but we can make our own shows. I think there was a movie was Teata, right? It has I think Gil Birmingham's in that one too, right? And that one is, I saw like the credits. It was I don't know, it was like the Cherokee Nation or the Choctaw Nation's film company or something that was involved. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. We need more of this. I think we should invest in telling our own stories And I know we shouldn't always depend on movies or shows to learn history from, but I think we'll get a better, more accurate representation if we do tell something, especially historical, right?
Mhm.
And I think we need, because we tell non-natives, read this book about this. Most of the time they don't. And it's really sad that we come to this, especially if all of us here, I think we're all Marxists, right? So, sometimes, I have to find audiobooks for people to be like, okay, maybe you have a hard time reading, which is fine. Here's an audiobook. But I think we learn, or we tell stories. We can tell stories for ourselves, and we, like I said, we should just start thinking about that. And I think people are thinking about that. It's just that we might not get front and center in the colonial structure of Hollywood, where Marvel movies and Harry Potter movies and Transformer movies are just front reign right now. So we gotta spread the word about our work.
It's called Blood Quantum. Is the zombie movie? I liked it. It was pretty cool.
That sounds like a crazy name for a horror movie. Yeah, I was like, I want to.
There's a point. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a point. There's a reason why they called it Blood Quantum. That certain people are immune to the virus, and there's certain people that are not immune to the virus. And let's just say the people who are not immune to the virus look like me. And they're causing problems as normal.
Oh, it's cool. I never heard of this movie. I want to watch it. Yeah, looks kind of cool. Yeah.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
I have one quick thing, if you don't mind. I love the fact that there's more production companies, like Indigenous production companies and directors, because I want a historically accurate Battle of Greasegrass. I want to see Custard get just fucking murked in the most historical.
Oh, I'm waiting for that. Yeah.
I want that, and I want a fucking historically accurate Haitian revolution movie. I know, like Danny Glover was trying to do it, but like he couldn't get any like white companies to get on board with it. So I want that, and I want a fucking accurate representation of Custer's last stand, just slow motion, just getting fucking murked. We're like,
I'm going to tell you right now that there's going to be a lot of nations out there claiming that it was their warrior who did it.
all at the same time.
All of them at the same
time. Just getting fucking stabbed and shot by everyone. Like, you just see like
it's a 30-minute long scene
of him dying. It's like the end of Platoon with fucking William Dafoe. It's like, it's just fucking getting murked by everybody.
It's kind of like that scene in Prey where like there's a scene where the Predator was killing a bunch of like French settlers. I was like, yeah! That's like the best fucking scene in the movie. But yeah, I would be hyped to see something like that too. Even shows, I like shows more than movies because it gets deeper. I think movies are kind of restricted to like 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 hours. Like, oh, it's too long. I'm like, they make a fucking show, right? So I'm one of those, like, if it gets too long, just make a show and I'll watch the show. I'm cool with it. Even if it's like a 4 or 5 part series, whatever.
I would love I would love a series and it just builds up to the last 2, just getting fucking just to be great.
I want equal time for Custer and his armies and all of the indigenous people who are building their camps to go move to the battle. I want equal screen time, at least, if not more native screen time. And I want one of the stories is that it might have been White Buffalo Calf Woman, might have been her, but one of the stories is that it's a woman warrior who knocks Custer off of his horse before he gets killed. Like, I want that in there. I want all of this. And I want, okay, do you remember like the 90s when they'd come out with like those historical epics that were like 6 parts and they would be shown like movies almost? Yeah. I want one of them, just jam-packed full of it.
They just do like multiple death scenes, like, this is the Cheyenne version.
They show the card from Clue with like, this is how it could have happened, but also
it's just watching him just get murked in like 5 different ways. What was that clip on TikTok I showed you? Like, and Custer went out west with his feeling of invincibility, and the Cheyenne and the whatever proved him wrong.
Arapaho, yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking great. It was that Ken Burns like Civil War documentary. And it was like that monotone voice. It's like they proved him wrong. It was like, yeah, they did.
Yeah, I want to thank you for everybody here for having me. I think it's good. I'm actually happy that I want to say this. That I didn't know your podcast had Native people in it, and I really like that. I learned this, and I think maybe you should advertise them. I don't know, because I try to tend to tell people like, hey, it's the native, native. Because not, I mean, obviously Nelson's not native, but there's other podcasts where they have native people that not the whole crew is native, which is fine, right? So I think it's still a native podcast in a sense. So I think, I really appreciate learning that about your podcast and hearing your perspectives and having somebody else's Comanche too, right? So, it's pretty cool. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Rick.
Rick.
So where can people find you and your work?
Yes. So my podcast is called Decolonized Buffalo. And I started it. Can I talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So I started it around 2018 because I felt there was I rant a lot about it, about there's like a lot of misconceptions about Native sovereignty or decolonization. And so I decided to create something to help people learn, and I also went to law school. So I went to law school for Native law. So was primarily to learn how, our sovereignty fits into decolonization and Marxism, blah, blah, blah. And I made a podcast, and I'm trying to interview people that I feel like help people understand about issues like Marxism or Native law issues like ICWA or the casinos. There's like misconceptions about casinos, and or even like I have a Native law series. I think it's like episode 50 to 52, but also how we can have solidarity between natives and non-natives, especially like even like quote unquote Anglos, white people, whatever. Because I think there's like misconception of what decolonization is, and I think people preyed on that this last 2 years, especially that Pat Sox, right?
Yeah, oh my
like
God.
Haas, Hinkle, and all these people of MOP, and they preyed on that to say that Native people are going to kick all the white people out. And it's like that's not what decolonization is. That's not what liberation is. That's not even what Marxism is. There's no Marxist person that thinks that. I think having to bring these conversations, and I think me being a little bit older, having these conversations in the late 90s, early 2000s within grassroots, and then seeing them come full blown on the internet this last 2 years, I was like, oh, this is the shit that I was dealing with 20 years ago. Right. So I think talking about these things is really important. And I think the most important thing for people to take from the podcast is not only the episodes, but I really highly suggest going to the Instagram. And in the Instagram, there's like story highlights, right? Mm-hmm. And in that, I put resources. In the beginning, it might look like just my episodes, but if you keep clicking, there's articles, there's links to videos, there's other stuff you can look at. There's I'm really gonna start advertising it more. There's a podcast share drive where I collected a bunch of different things from undergrad, from law school, from other comrades and stuff that I bought myself, books, ebooks, PDF versions, and I'm dumping everything in there. So as free resource, I think ZLib got taken down. But I think I'm trying to collect books to help people understand as much as possible. And Native issues is so vast, right? There's no one podcast that covers everything Native related, even me, right? So I think when I don't cover it, or if I don't cover it good enough, I like to refer to other podcasts that do a good job, right? Because there's so many nations, over in the US alone, there's 574, including Canada, including Mexico and Central America and South America. But I try to cover just the big three in North America, right? And I think yeah, I think for the podcast is for people to learn, and I hope, and it's free. Everything's free, and not to dish on anybody that has a Patreon, right? But I think, and it's fine if you do, but I think for me, I'm trying to do this work because I was frustrated,
Mhm.
you know, uh, for so many years hearing the same racist rhetoric within grassroots, and I think we talked about it. I think somebody here talked about it. I think it was Kaya, right? They said they called you a red Indian, right?
Yeah.
In the UK. And the same thing that happened to me within grassroots. It was people were calling me. I would have little like quote unquote debates or like conversations, and they'll say something like, "Oh, we'll put a feather in your bonnet. We let you have this round, this win. Put a feather on your bonnet." I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" Right? And I would say in the group, "Hey man, this is racist." I'm like, "We don't think it's racist." I was like, "No, it's racist." Right? So
Let's
there's
have
a
a
lot
let's
to
have a powwow. It's just like, oh,
that
man.
too.
Yeah,
The
chief.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like,
jinx.
oh my god. I had that incident with British people from when I was in the army. I worked with British Army, and they would call me Two Feathers. I'm like, why are they calling me Two Feathers, man? Like, get the fuck out of it. There's something that I don't understand. Maybe Kaya can help me explain. One of them, I pissed them off, and they called me a Muppet. Right? I don't know what the fuck that is.
That's actually pretty mild.
Okay. I was like Kermit or like Fozzie Bear. I don't know.
Well,
It's kind of no Jordan Peterson. Shut up.
Jordan Peterson.
Like calling somebody a Muppet, like as a quick aside, calling somebody a Muppet is pretty mild. Saying like it's kind of like oh you idiot kind of kind of thing.
I was like, what does that mean? Yeah, but you come check the podcast. It's Decolonized Buffalo on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm barely on Facebook, so I haven't updated that at all for like years. But yeah, I think Twitter and Instagram are the two big ones. But streaming, I mean, those are not where the podcast is at. Streaming wise, is Spotify, YouTube, but this I think there's like 7 other platforms I have it on. I just upload and it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, people can check it out. It's cool.
You said something.
Go ahead.
No, you said something spot on that I loved, and I hate when other podcasts do this. We have a Patreon, but it's only just us talking shit about the news. Like it's just us literally just being spicy and talking shit.
Yeah.
But I hate when podcasts that try to be historical and educational put really good interviews or like really stuff that people need to hear like behind a paywall. It's just like, that's not what we're here for. It's just like like people need to learn stuff and need to understand history and in politics, like how it's supposed to be, not like the bullshit you learn in school. So like there's a number of podcasts I listen to that are really educational, and they're like, oh, our premium episodes are interviewing so I was like, shit, I'd like to hear that, but I don't have the fucking money to throw out like $10 a month or whatever to listen to this episode. Like, why would you put it out for free? Like, come on, like seriously.
I have this thing, and maybe it's fucking corny, right? But Karl Marx died sitting on a table working on his book, and he wasn't famous. He wasn't rich from it. And I think I mean, obviously he's a communist. He's not about wealth. Who cares? But I'm not trying to. I feel some of these podcasts are trying to gain. There's two things: the clout and money. And I think if you are a revolutionary podcast, like if you're good, you're gonna have the word out. Plain and simple, right? And if you want money, if you're in anything Marxist related for money, then you're in the wrong business.
You're a grifter.
Yeah, exactly. Grifter. So, but it does take money to create this, and it sucks for me sometimes because I spend money for like this Zoom memberships or whatever, and other producing software yearly things. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, should make a Patreon? I'm like, nah, I think I'm good. I'm not, starving for money, so I'm like, why not? But the information is more important, I think, than anything. And so
Fuck yeah.
Nice. So make sure you send Nelson your links and he can stick them in the show notes for us at the end.
Yeah.
So people who are listening, go check our show notes so you can find Rick and Decolonized Buffalo out there in the wild. It's out there. You'll find some wild Indians.
Yeah. What does the decolonized buffalo look like? I'm like, shut up. I hate that question.
How does one decolonize the
Yeah,
buffalo?
that's the other
Buffalo's already
question.
a colonized buffalo is a cow.
That was the first thing that I saw here in count. I was like, how does one decolonize the buffalo?
The buffalo decolonizes you, man. You see people trying to pet a buffalo.
Yeah.
Go ahead and try
Got the
it.
fucking jeans on its horn for ripping someone's pants off. Fucking great.
That's the colonization.
Yeah.
Land back.
All right. Well, if that's it, I can do our outro.
Yeah.
Everybody done? All right. At Dixieland of the Proletariat, we believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons. Those being decolonization, worker-owned means of production, and the self-determination of all oppressed peoples. Make sure to click on our link tree in the show notes to find all of our social media. We are coming to you from the birthplaces of the civil rights movement, Montgomery, Alabama, as well as sweet Georgia, and for now, jolly old England. The show would also like to recognize that they are recording on occupied land that rightfully belongs to the Muskogee and Cherokee nations, and I would like to recognize that I'm recording on land I fully expect to steal from the King of England. With that being said, Mark, close us out. We can't hear it.
No.
Can't hear it. What is it?
Did you hear it?
No.
Sweet back.
What is
The
it?
joke is ruined. The bit is ruined.
No.
I was like furiously like looking up when I was muted, looking up eagle sound effects on YouTube.
Hold on, wait.
So I'm sorry.
You can add it later. Edit it.
Mr. Speaker,
Yeah.
add the eagle
Yeah,
sound effect at the end.
Edit this out where there was
No,
like a
keep
pause.
this. Keep
and then
this.
put it in.
And put it in there.
I've already made a mistake when I attacked the horse movie, when I was mistaken for the bear movie. And then this is just, I gotta go. I gotta hide. I gotta just disappear.